And we're back. You're listening to Smart Companies Thinking Bigger Radio at blogtalkradio.com and TV25 with Mikey Molina. So, Mikey, before we took the break, you were talking to us a little bit about your homes on land and your land that you have, your two different areas of your three-headed business, as you mentioned.
Yes.
So with your homes on land, talk to us a little bit more, because I think it's important for our listeners and our viewers to understand. You do just have raw land where you can have mineral rights, for example.
Absolutely.
I know there was...
nice.
I know. Did you
Didn't
like
know
that
you
little
know that.
slide in? Well, because I was working with an investor, and we found like a $1.8 million property out in Baser, and the reason that he wanted it was because of oil.
Right.
And it was fascinating. He had like 25 oil rigs on this land.
Right.
And I mean, passive income of $20,000 per oil rig.
Yeah.
Hello, you do the math. I mean, so.
Yeah, and I've worked with oil companies before of buying, because all over the country they have oil maps and they can see where things are at. I mean, fortunately, oil is down right now and gas.
Right. But you know what I learned about that was fascinating to me is oil, there's no, and you're going to laugh, I know, it's okay. There's no like giant dipstick for the oil on land, right?
You're exactly right.
There isn't. It's not like a car where you test for oil and say, how much deeper is this oil going to go? You could literally buy that land and then runs out just like that.
Absolutely.
And there's no land. And
So you're going to go and create a dipstick.
I am. That was my
I know.
That was my whole business idea.
Creating something. I know.
Like,
She's going to have
giant
it patented
dipstick
and
for
everything.
land.
Yeah.
That'll be great. But I think that's important just to iterate because people don't understand the difference between raw land, which is
that can be anywhere from someone looking, like I said earlier, someone looking for transitional land, which is what we call this, going to transition into a commercial area down the road. So maybe an investor wants to put their money there and wait and just sit on it and know that eventually it's going to increase in value. Recreational, where someone wants to hunt on it or have their church group out there and have the Boy Scouts out. Maybe they can fish on the lake, something like that. Just play around on, I have a lot of doctors that I'm working with that they like to buy the land and enjoy it. They live in town and they want to be close to the hospitals, but they also want to have something to recreate on. And then also people looking to get out of the city and to build a home on. So a lot of buyers will end up buying now and enjoy it and go camp out there and have the s'mores.
They bring their horses and all that kind of stuff
eventually,
out there.
And then they'll build the house and they'll live out there. So sometimes they'll put the barn first, but they can do that because it's not in a HOA, and a lot of times they're wanting to get away from the HOA. So they want to have their own rules and they want to do their own thing. So, but finding that land that has the infrastructure in place that you can go ahead and do that, talking with the county, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes and making sure. So,
So, Mikey, I know you work by yourself, so you're a one-person operation.
Right.
How do you manage all of that,
Right.
everything you do? I don't know how many transactions you close or that kind of thing, or how many clients you maintain.
Yeah.
But I did hear you say you had a family.
Correct.
So how do you manage all of that, being a single agent practitioner?
This is one of my favorite topics to talk about because it's very hard for women to be moms and to have their family and to have a big business. So that's what I love about Keller Williams and being at Keller Williams. So I have an assistant that I had one last year and I have a new one this year that I leverage a lot to, and they help me out a lot. I have my focus is I don't want my family to feel like I work at all. But I want my clients to feel like I work 100% of the time.
Ooh,
That's
well
cool.
said.
Like that.
I like that too.
Repeat that?
Yes. Could you trademark that? Could you sell that?
We
That
will
was
write that
brilliant.
down.
I want
I
my
love
family to feel like I don't work at all, but that my clients feel like I work 100% of the time. That they're
Awesome.
fully
That is
serviced.
good. Yeah.
But that's a hard balance.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really hard. And it's really not a balance. It's a swerve. I mean, you are swerving back and forth. You get offline because you have a very busy weekend. You have a client in town that has to buy. I mean, I work every single day. And it's not a typical 8 hours from, 9 to 5.
Right.
I mean, it looks like that a lot because I'm in the office and then I go on appointments in the afternoon. I really focus hard from 3 to 5 not to be working. It doesn't always happen. So, but then in the evenings, they understand, kids are older. It's a lot easier now that they're older. But yeah, that's huge. And so what I think is important is for women to talk to each other and see what's working and help that. But leverage is huge. I work with a lot of new agents in our office, and it's almost like a mentoring thing I like to do with them. So they're gaining knowledge from what I do and the mistakes that I've made, and they can also work with my clients too. And, help me by go showing them properties until they find that one property that they love. And then I circle back around and make sure, is this something that I don't ever want a buyer to buy a property that I don't want to sell in the future. Because I expect that I'm going to do a great job, that they're going to hire me back to sell their property in 5 to 7 years, because that's the national average when you're going to sell a home, and that they're going to hire me back to sell it. So the worst thing for me is that I sell you a property, and then I go to list it, and I say, okay, here's the objections we're going to have. And they say, you sold me this house. Why didn't you tell me that when I bought it? So I go into it as a reverse role always. Everything I reverse. A listing appointment, I go in as I'm a buyer's agent, and what are the objections that we're going to see? What are the objections we're going to hear? How can we overcome that before it goes on the market? Very
smart.
Because if we're going to hear the objections, let's handle it. So we handle it, and then same thing with a buyer. I go in as I'm going to list it and look at it. The top 3, we'll see. There's junk out there sometimes. I'm not going to do that with every property. When we find the top 3, these are the objections you're going to see. I call it the voice of the ghosts of buyers past. It may not be your objection, but it may be another buyer's objection. And you may love this house, but can we overcome this with another buyer? So that's hugely important to me because, although my number one source for buyers last year was new business. So,
how'd you get your new business? Talk to us about that.
Well, I get a lot of internet leads and a lot of sign calls. So, honestly, that is just talking to them and answering questions. What do you want this property to do for you? What are you looking for? Because it may not be the one that they've called on that they're asking for. And it's funny because I have a tag and release system that I call it, that I'm tagging those buyers as they call in my phone. And so when they call again and say, hey, why didn't you call me about this property? Well, you told me you were looking for this much on this, much acreage or whatever it is. And they don't always think that they should tell me the truth, right? It's like a used car salesman. They think, oh, let's not tell her exactly. Well, you know what? I have a 30% market share in the area that you're calling on. So Western Johnson County, I have a 30% market share out there. So those properties sell really quick, and a lot of times they go to my buyer list. So, and I've sold 69% of my own land listings over the last 13 years.
Wow. That's huge.
So,
congratulations.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Well, and it's mostly about, all right, someone calls me, they want to sell their land, or they want to sell their home on land. That doesn't happen in residential stuff as much. Those properties sell at 101% of their list price last year, and they've sold within an average of 3 days.
Nice.
So because that's getting properties looking at what is going to sell and going out and looking at all of them and saying, this is where it's going to sell, and this is what we have to do to make it look pretty. So I always treat land and homes on land the same way. That's what makes me different as a land listing agent, because I treat it like a residential property. A lot of land agents don't do that.
Awesome. Very good.
That's great.
I love all this information about the land and the farm and the residential, but you know what our listeners love?
Yes.
And our viewers love to know about our guests? We love to put them in the hot seat with funny stories.
Okay.
Something that's fun and something maybe weird that happens,
creepy.
Right. Doesn't have to have a bad ending, like death or something, but something. So
I don't think I've had death. Okay.
So when we come back, I want you to think about that for a moment. When we come back, I'd like to hear your story.
Okay.
So,
excellent.
This is Real Estate Matters with Tamika Bryan and Christy Porter on TV25 and Smart Companies Thinking Bigger Radio at blogtalkradio.com.